is CNN Breaking News.
Welcome back, everyone. We continue our breaking news coverage of the disappearance of MS804, that EgyptAir flight that disappeared from Paris en route to Cairo. We want to bring you up to speed on exactly what we know right now. Egyptian military search and rescue teams have arrived at a specific search location to look for that missing jetliner. Officials from the airline and Egypt's Civil Aviation Authority tell Reuters the plane probably crashed in the sea. EgyptAir says the Airbus 320 was heading from Paris to Cairo with 66 people on board when it disappeared from radar.
The plane was at an altitude of 37,000 feet, 10 miles inside Egyptian airspace. An EgyptAir official says there is no confirmation of a distress call and no notification of any special cargo or dangerous goods on board. Ian Lee joins us now on the line from Cairo Airport. So Ian, can you describe to us the scene there right now?
Well, right now they're gathering the family members. We haven't been given access to that area, but they're gathering the family members in an area to give them the latest updates. Also, media has been directed that area for any sort of updates from Egyptian officials. But from what we're hearing right now, this search and rescue operation is taking place about 40 to 50 miles north of the Egyptian coast. That is the area where they believe this plane had crashed. This would be in the Mediterranean. We're hearing that the Egyptian Air Force, as well as the Egyptian Navy, is involved in this search. No word yet if they have found anything, but Egyptian officials are telling us right now that they have all the resources available that can search for this plane. They have put it into that search. But right now, it really is the waiting game, trying to see what they're able to come up with, what they're able to find. But it is excruciating for the family members here in Cairo. There were 66 total people on board this flight, 56 passengers. We do not know the nationalities of the passengers. Could there have been French? Most likely, or there were Egyptians on the plane, but what other nationalities were there on this plane? We know that there were 2 infants and 1 child on board this plane. EgyptAir officials are telling us that they did not receive any sort of distress call from the pilot. Everything was going normal until the plane disappeared from radar. We're also hearing that there wasn't any hazardous material on board or anything that they would notify the pilot about, that they would be concerned about. So for all intents and purposes, it seemed like a very normal flight. The EgyptAir saying that this plane, this A320, had all the regular maintenance, that everything was on schedule. This pilot, they're telling us, is someone with great experience, with thousands of hours of flight experience and over 2,000 hours on this specific aircraft. So really, the cause of this crash is very much still unknown. At least the Egyptian officials, that is one of the main priorities right now, figuring out where that plane is and what was the cause of the crash.
And Ian, is this situation affecting operations there at the airport in Cairo? What is happening with regards to other flights taking off and landing?
Right now, it appears that everything is going normal and on schedule. We haven't seen any delays or any other congestion here at the airport. It seems to be operating as normal. EgyptAir officials telling us that they will keep updating us with the information as soon as they get it. They are right now establishing a command center to deal with this situation, but still, this plane disappearing about 4 hours ago, 5 hours ago now at this time. So they're just trying to get a grasp of the situation and move forward.
All right, Ian Lee joining us there on the line. Ian is on the scene at the airport in Cairo. Ian, appreciate the reporting. We'll check back in with you shortly. Stand by for us. Thank you.
Clearly, the investigation into what may or may not happen is now the crucial part to try and find out where that wreckage might be. In fact, if there may in fact be any survivors in the sea. Let's try and get some more perspective on the investigation. Dr. Alan Deal is a former accident investigator for the National Transportation Safety Board, also for the FAA and the US Air Force. He is the author of Air Safety Investigators Using Science to Save Lives, One Crash at a Time. He joins us now live from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Alan, thank you for being with us. We always appreciate your insight. Let's just recap some of what we know here right now. 37,000 feet, no distress call, no sign of descent. Whatever happened, I guess, happened very quickly. What's your assessment?
Well, you'd assume that there could, of course, have been some kind of onboard fire. I know we always think that the pilots are going to make a mayday call because that's the way it is in the movies. But in fact, pilots try to troubleshoot. They aviate, troubleshoot, then they navigate and communicate. So they may have been battling some sort of mechanical problem and may not have elected to make a mayday call because they know only they can solve the problem. And I know Aisha and John, you've covered a lot of these accidents before, and they're all different. But I'm not absolutely convinced that this thing might not have ditched. 37,000 feet sounds like a long, it's cruise altitude, but you can get down in 8 or 10 minutes, and you wouldn't necessarily make a radio call. I'm not suggesting that that's what I'm speculating, as you know, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, but until we, actually find a fuel slick or wreckage, I haven't given up that it might have been some kind of controlled ditching, but, not everything is on the table, as they say, this early in the investigation.
And how difficult is that to do at 37,000 feet? As you talk about a controlled ditching, what level of complexity are we talking about?
Well, of course, it was at night. That always complicates things when you're having to make a judgment. When the Miracle on the Hudson occurred, that was a broad daylight on a calm river. So it would be a challenging endeavor, to say the least. But they pulled it off before. Other pilots, not just Captain Shelley Sullivan, have they have done those kind of things before. Pilots don't normally practice that, but it's possible. I don't want to raise I don't want to raise false hope. That's the most likely scenario. But like I said, until you find wreckage or a fuel slick or something like that, I hope I'm sure the search and rescue people are still looking for the possibility of an intact aircraft and hoping against hope that maybe it was a ditching.
Alan, let me ask you a very basic question here. If it was a ditching, wouldn't the transponders have radioed some kind of location to radar? Why, if they ditched it, why did it disappear from radar?
Well, it would disappear from radar because of the, once it gets down below the horizon. Now, of course, we know there's a lot of radar coverage in that area. So you think that the primary radar there, I'm sure the air safety investigators in Egypt and probably in Israel and other places are looking at their data right now to see where, not only where they lost the transponder, but, which way the primary target went and how quickly did it descend to try to get some idea of whether or not it could have been a ditching. Again, I'm only speculating here, John, as you know. But there's a number of devices. And, of course, the Israeli military has very good radar, and I'm sure I would expect they would have offered whatever data they have to the Egyptian investigators who are going to have to carry out this investigation. But we've seen Airbuses go in, and, of course, Boeing's. The famous one was the Air France over the South Atlantic back in 2011, as I recall. So we've seen this before. Now, that wasn't a ditching. That was a crash. Again, they should be able to find, now that it's light out there with all the assets that they have, both the vessels and especially helicopters and the fixed-wing aircraft, I would imagine they will find a fuel slick and wreckage fairly quickly, and they'll know whether or not there's any possibility of any survivors.
Well, Alan Deal, we appreciate it. We know that, as you say, you're speculating, but you're speculating with insight and expertise that few people have. So we very much appreciate you being with us.
Yes, Alan, thank you so much for that. And our breaking news coverage of the missing EgyptAir flight MS804 continues after a very quick break. Do stay with us.